Welcome to the Christian Nerd HQ download. The download.
Hey everyone, this is Ryan, back with another update of WWE action. This week we are going to look at the events that have led up to and the premium live event of Night of Champions that was hosted in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The big news coming into the event was the creation of the World Heavyweight Championship title that is going to be on Raw thanks to the WWE draft. In this tournament, which you can see on screen right now, is a set of 4 triple threat matches that led to 2 semifinals matches, with the championship match being at Night of Champions. I actually thought that this tournament was set up pretty well, with a couple of exceptions. As you look at the tournament bracket, you will notice that the matches were set up very oddly. In the first triple threat match that happened on Raw, you had Finn Balor, Cody Rhodes, and The Miz. Now, the 2 leading contenders for this title was always going to be Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. But both of those 2 were put on the same side of the bracket. So as you look at the Raw side, which would be the left-hand side of the bracket, you notice you had 2 pretty evenly set matches, but set up to where you would get a semifinals match of Cody versus Seth. Even on that first night of the tournament, they teased those 2 fighting each other, which I think is probably more of a foreshadowing piece than anything else. But as that foreshadowing was teased, those events did not end up happening, as Brock Lesnar came out as expected to set up another match with Cody Rhodes at Night of Champions. In the second triple threat match, Seth Rollins ran away with the competition and cruised into the semifinal, setting up a Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins match. Now, this was a very smart semifinal. Both of the workers could work. Both of the wrestlers could put on a great match and put on an exciting match with each other. Now, the shocking thing with that semifinals match is that it happened on the same night as the triple threats, which means both of these wrestlers had to wrestle twice in the same night, and doing so left the past week open leading into the premium live event. I thought WWE could have spread this out a little more, but it is understandable considering that most of WWE was in Riyadh for almost the entire week, and having a wrestler wrestle Friday night of SmackDown, getting an overnight flight to Saudi to wrestle again for the pay-per-view with the time change is going to be kind of difficult. Going back to the World Heavyweight Championship tournament bracket, you'll see on the right-hand side the 6 superstars slated to compete for the tournament from SmackDown. And if you look, I actually felt like the bracket and the 2 triple threat matches were a little bit unbalanced. Out of the 6 superstars, I would have actually expected 2 of the 3 in the first triple threat match between AJ Styles, Edge, and Rey Mysterio to compete for the shot in Saudi Arabia against Seth Rollins. AJ Styles actually came out of the first triple threat match, which was a little shocking. I could have seen any of these superstars winning, especially Edge, to kind of give him a little bit of a push, because right now he's doing nothing on the roster. He's there, but I think a good last tournament run from Edge would have been something nice to kind of get everything kickstarted. But being realistic, when we're looking at these triple threat matches, none of the 6 superstars on SmackDown side were going to win. The title was slated for Raw, and it would just be easier to keep that on a Raw superstar, not a SmackDown superstar. With that being said, AJ Styles comes out, which is actually really impressive. He's been on the shelf hurt for probably the last 6 to 9 months, and for him to come back, get a couple matches under his belt, and now get pushed to what eventually would be the championship match is huge. In the second triple threat, Bobby Lashley came away with the victory. Not too surprising, as Austin Theory and Sheamus are feuding for the U.S. title lightly right now. I expect that to pick up in a few weeks. Later in the night, AJ Styles picks up the victory, setting up an incredible championship match between AJ Styles and Seth Rollins at Night of Champions. Speaking of that, the very first match at Night of Champions was the championship match of this tournament between AJ Styles and Seth Rollins. And these two came out to prove a point. The biggest knock against this title in general is that it's a secondary title. As these two wrestlers came out first on the card, which right there kind of shows where WWE views this title. You have Roman with the WWE title and the Universal title, and now we have the World Heavyweight Championship. If this was to be a equal title on a level playing field, shouldn't this match have gone on last? And I know the storyline for this title isn't as big as the one with the bloodline, but still, if you are going to even these two titles, it has to go on later in the show, and it used it to kick it off. And I understand why. From a talent perspective, you have two of your most athletic superstars, two superstars that are going to put on a great match, and you're going to have them wrestle for a new title off the bat. And that's what they did. And you could tell that both AJ and Seth really did their best to put on a quality match. Again, I want to point out how impressive it is for AJ Styles to wrestle at the level that he is, coming off such an injury and being out of action. There was no signs of ring rust. There was no signs of not being able to pull off moves. These two went for it, and they went for it well. Additionally, I would like to compliment the commentary team as they were telling a great story. They were telling about how Seth had been off for a little bit shooting a movie, which he has been. They told the story of how AJ was pulling off all his moves, but Seth knew exactly what to expect. And it just showed the level of competition, the level of prep work for these two superstars. And eventually, as predicted, Seth Rollins comes away with the victory. I mentioned it earlier here. I mentioned it in our last video that Seth was probably the favorite to win this title. Again, he was a Raw superstar. He would be the one that should carry the match. If it wasn't him, it would be Cody Rhodes, but we'll get to Cody Rhodes a little bit later. Great match, great start. No real storyline to go here. It's just really trying to establish a new champion, a working champion, a champion that's going to be on shows every week. That's kind of the push for this title, and I think Seth is going to do a great job of that. And hopefully he continues to lose a little bit of the wild, crazy of his gimmick to become that hardworking champion that we all know and love. The second match of the night was the first of 3 women's matches on this card, which goes such a long way. Before, when they very first started, WWE very first started doing events in Saudi Arabia, women weren't even allowed to wrestle on the card, and there's a lot of political things there. We're not trying to get into political stuff here, but just knowing and showing the growth of the use of women on Saudi Arabia cards is huge. And I just think that just showcases a lot of what WWE has done and their involvement has done to get the women a bigger spot on the card as they rightly deserve. And this first match was a huge one. It was between Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus. Now, just like AJ was out for about 9 months, you have Trish Stratus being off 4 years before wrestling this match. Like, she's popped up in little spots here and there, has been on television, wrestled in a Royal Rumble, but like going at it in a one-on-one match, no rest breaks, no just, hey, I'm doing a spot here, I'm doing a spot there, like actually wrestling. Trish looked good. She did everything that she could do to pull off this match. Becky obviously had to help her as she is the younger superstar. She is the superstar that's in shape, that has been in the ring consistently. But Trish did very well. And you can tell that all the stuff that she does with her lifestyle and fitness really played a huge role in putting off such a good match. And the two went back and forth. It was a lot of a 50-50 match. At the end, you could tell Trish was getting tired. As to be expected. Anyone should be if you haven't wrestled like that in 4 years. Becky helped her through it. There were some clunky spots at the end, but again, if they were both fresh, I think that would be fine. And then at the end, what a surprise. Zoe Stark, new superstar, called up from NXT, slides out from under the ring, nails Becky with her finishing move, and then Trish gets the 1-2-3 victory. This was a perfect match to start the storytelling. In my head, I kind of thought Trish would win this match, and that would be because I think that what WWE really wants to do with this storyline is to set up maybe a series of 3 matches where they fight here at Night of Champions, they get a rematch at Money in the Bank, and then they're even going into SummerSlam, where eventually Becky wins 2 of the 3 matches. Trish can go off and back into retirement or off TV. I just think it's a smart move to have her there right now to push this story a little forward. Interestingly, though, I really feel like Lita has been left out of this whole thing. Like a month ago, she was the co-tag team champion with Becky. She gets hit, and then where is she? So I would say keep a lookout for Lita in this feud going forward, as you might start seeing some like tag matches or things where it's Lita and Becky versus Zoe and Trish. You might get a one-on-one match like off somewhere with Lita and Trish again. I really don't know where they can go, but I think everything is going to build off the fact that you have Becky and Trish in this conflict, and they're going to kind of explode with Zoe and Lita kind of playing these roles of spoilers in different things. But I do expect the matches to get better from here. Like Trish already looked this good in match 1. As she wrestles more, as she gets more in shape, as she has more time to train, I think that you're not going to see these matches that start off great and then end up kind of like a blow up. You're going to start seeing some real quality come out. And I think, and I actually kind of hope, that Becky pulls something out of Trish that she hasn't used. Like Trish was obviously one of the best wrestlers in the Attitude Era, coming out of the Attitude Era. But I think the level of competition is different, and I think Becky can be the person to help Trish find that little bit extra and pull off something really spectacular. Okay, match number 3 was Ali, or as we should call him, Positive Ali versus Gunther. And as we go into this match, it was exactly what everybody expected it to be. It was a smash match. Like, this match didn't last very long at all. I really think the whole purpose of having this match and having Ali win the Battle Royal to earn the spot here is just to do almost like they did with Zelina Vega in Puerto Rico and have Ali compete in front of a home crowd. Now, Ali's from Chicago, but his heritage puts him aligned more with the people of Saudi Arabia, and I think that is a huge role. Usually this role was filled by Mansoor, and Mansoor would come and give the hometown crowd a pop and do this, but I think they're using Ali for this role. But at the end of the day, Gunther crushed him, and it was exactly what you expected it to be. There was not a lot of offense on Ali's side. It was really just kind of nice to have him in a pay-per-view. I will say that Mustafa Ali is actually a really great talent, and he has a lot of ability. It's been widely known that he was, due to his injury, was kind of pushed off the card, and Kofi Kingston got a spot that he should have had, and then he's never been able to get that back, and that's all well and good, but I think, him finding a spot and doing what he can with even the Positive Ali gimmick is kind of huge. He was able to wrestle and do some things and get back, and I think hopefully this is just a little taste of what's coming in the future. I think the hard thing is with even the whole mid-card, especially on the Intercontinental side of things, is that Gunther is such a dominant champion. Like, they're looking for him to become the next WWE champion or world heavyweight champion. Like, he is going to get that push. He did well with it when he was the NXT UK champion. He did well in just regular NXT. And so getting those pushes is rightful for him. I think he deserves it. But I almost wonder if WWE has booked him too dominant. Like, who is going to be the superstar that comes in to beat him? Unless you bring like a Bobby Lashley in, unless you bring a Sheamus in, unless you bring someone else in to beat him, you're not going to get a Ricochet. You're not going to get a Mustafa Ali, like a mid-card guy that's trying to come up, a la Bret Hart in 91, excuse me, to win that title and elevate them. Like, he's got that title, and him having it is elevating the title higher. How are they going to get that off of him? And I just think it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. Maybe it could be someone like Matt Riddle. I don't know. But, like, you just have to kind of start thinking, like, he's really dominant. And he's going to hold on to this Intercontinental title for a while. Right now, he's on the verge of breaking the Honky Tonk Man's all-time streak, and I think WWE really wants him to do that. They're just kind of on this kick of resetting records. You know, even this upcoming Friday, Roman is celebrating over 1,000 days as champion. That kind of hasn't happened in a long time. I would almost say decades that it hasn't happened. So now they're looking to do the same thing with the Intercontinental title. Just something to be on the lookout for. Again, this match didn't have much of a story to it. There was not really a lot of reason to have it on the card other than the hometown pop for Ali. The next match on the card was Asuka versus Bianca Belair. Now, this was a rematch between two people that wrestled at WrestleMania. And most of the time, whenever you get a rematch, there has to be a reason for it. And this reason is Asuka's new persona. The fourth match on the card was a rematch of the Raw Women's Championship match from WrestleMania this past year, and that was between Bianca Belair and Asuka. The reason for this rematch is actually kind of interesting, and it all has to do with Asuka and her character. Since WrestleMania, she has changed her character into a more devious, more sinister, little bit more evil and menacing, Great Muta-esque character. And you can tell by her haircut, by her face paint, by everything that she kind of has going on. Her entrance, just everything is a little bit more evil. And I think this plays well into what Asuka is trying to do and what WWE is trying to do with Asuka. Like, we forget that Asuka had a huge undefeated streak when she came onto the main roster. She completely dominated NXT. She is at this level and hasn't been treated as such. And I think this evil heel style character is going to do really well for her because she plays that crazy, evil, cunning character really well. Yes, the face paint helps. Yes, all of the Great Muta callbacks help. And speaking of that, we go into this match like watching these two superstars put on a great match. It was back and forth. There were good move sets. There were false finishes. There was a lot of really good action here. But the biggest thing to me was how creative the finish was. And I'm not shy of saying when finishes are bad. Like, for example, in the last video I did, I called out WWE on how they finish all their triple threat matches the same. And then they literally go into 4 triple threat matches for a title tournament. And they come up with 4 new victories, 4 new ways to win, 4 new finishes. And you're looking at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, finally. And I think that trend is might keep growing because they were really creative in this finish. Now, typically, Asuka is known, and one of the big stories coming in was how Asuka used the mist, the evil mist, to spit into Bianca's eyes, and it blinded her, and it put her out, and you thought that like that was going to play a huge role. Well, then in this match, she goes to use the mist and misses. And then it's like, what do you do? And you see at the end, she gets creative. She still uses the mist, but she puts it on her fingers. And speaking of Great Muta callbacks, Great Muta always taped his fingers. She had her fingers taped as well. Well, she spit the mist into the tape, which held it. And as Bianca was going to put her into the kiss of death, she wiped it in her eyes. And I thought that was very creative because that blinded her, that incapacitated her for just a second, letting Asuka get off a couple kicks, knock Bianca out temporarily, get the 1, 2, 3, and bam, we have a new champion. I think that this was a great finish, and it continues a storyline, which I'm huge on storylines. If we look at where this feud is going, yes, it started at WrestleMania. Yes, it seemed like it was just a one-off. We took a pay-per-view off, and then bam, we're back at it. We got a title change. And that title change puts, as Bruce Prichard would say, a fresh paint of coat onto the whole rivalry. Now the roles are flipped. Bianca has to chase Asuka. This could go way into the future. I could see this going all the way through Survivor Series, maybe even into 2024 WrestleMania Royal Rumble type stuff. Bianca's been a great champion. She is great, but at some point in time, there's just nowhere to go, and so doing a title change will help. I think it could be really interesting to see what Asuka does with the title. Is she going to be this evil champion that's just dominant? Is she always going to use tricks and mist and kabuki-ish stuff to hold her title? They could go so many different ways with this. She could always end up winning no matter what. Bianca could chase and come oh so close to winning. I don't know, but I'm actually intrigued in the storyline and the role reversal that happens there. We'll have to see what happens on SmackDown. Our fifth match on the card is Natalya versus Rhea Ripley. We have back-to-back women's title matches here, and this is our third of 3 women's matches on the card. This is also known to my friends and I as Smash Match number 2. There was no shot of Natalya winning this match. There was no reason to have this match. The storyline itself was just weak. Natalya comes out as Rhea is punishing an opponent in the ring, and there's the match. I think this is just a one-off as someone to fight Rhea. I do think there are 2 main reasons for this match. Number 1, it was Natalya's birthday at Night of Champions, and so I think this was a good birthday gift for her from the company. And then number 2 is Natalya is a dependable worker, as someone who can be on the card to give Rhea one good match as a one-off kind of thing, and to get another women's match on the card. It does show that WWE trusts her and values her as a very long-standing member. Like, you forget, like, Natalya started out as part of a newer Hart Foundation with her and Tyson Kidd and Davey Boy Smith's son to restart the Hart Foundation. This was back in the early 2000s. This was also back when the Divas era was in full swing. So just kind of think like how long she's lasted, how well she's able to keep up, and how well she's able to do things. So a lot of props to Natty for this match. There was just no real point of it, and Rhea did Rhea things and smashed, and we move on. The second to last match of the night is probably one of the most anticipated. It's Cody Rhodes versus Brock Lesnar. Now, Cody had been playing up an angle where Brock had broke his arm, and I will say that in quotes, said he had a radial fracture in his forearm from a Kimura lock. I don't really know how a Kimura can give you a fracture on the forearm. I mean, it really more targets a shoulder. But regardless, they had it. And Cody did some excellent sell jobs here. Like, he was in a sling coming into the arena. He was in a sling in all of the things that led up to the match. And I really want to point out the level of selling to bring in the realism. WWE did a lot of stuff in Riyadh this past week. They did some Make-A-Wish things, they did some community events, and in all of those events, even if Cody was barely shown, he was always in his coat, in his suit, in a cast, in a sling, selling the arm angle to make it seem like, hey, he's resting the arm, he's taking care of the arm. Well, that next level selling, I think, is huge, because if I hadn't done research, I would have initially thought that his arm was actually broken and they had to play it, because typically WWE wouldn't sell that angle there, but you would see things when they're talking about the Make-A-Wish Foundation, they're talking about someone that they're dealing with, or they're talking about WWE visiting local kids in the community. They wouldn't really highlight Cody, but he would just be there because that was part of his job and what he was there to do. But he always had that cast on, just in a 2-second clip, like he's walking by, he's handing a gift, he's doing something, he's in the sling. And I think that level of selling is clutch. It adds the realism and is something that WWE has missed in the past as we've moved into an era where everybody can share their thoughts on a camera. Everybody can get the inside scoop from people like Fightful, or they can do a lot of different things. Bringing that realism in really does a lot in telling the stories and making things believable. Going into the match, though, they did notice how, and mention, the announcers did, how he was able to protect his fracture using a titanium cast. And my very first thought went back to like 94, 95, Lex Luger, Lex Express using the bionic forearm to attack Yokozuna. And I started thinking about that. I'm like, well, I wonder if he'll eventually use that. And they wasted no time. Brock came in, was beating on Cody. I don't know why in this match Cody fought like he was the underdog, like he should never win, when he played a 50-50 match the match before and actually won. And even though Brock got hurt, you know, the plan to get color was the plan all along. He just got a little more than what he was supposed to. But even in the original match, they fought pretty evenly. But then in this match, it was almost like Cody was never supposed to win. And I don't know where that came from. That's not believable. I know Brock Lesnar is a freak of nature and just can dominate anybody that he wants. But if you are trying to position Cody as the guy, which everybody perceives him to be the guy, then having him play less than, even with the hurt forearm, doesn't make sense, right? Like, I could see them using the forearm as a reason to, you know, tip everything in favor of Brock Lesnar, but just off the bat, like, he was never supposed to win, like, that just isn't it. But going back to that forearm and that titanium cast, it took no time for him to use that. It was immediate. Hey, I'm going to use it. I'm going to hit him. I'm going to knock him out. I can put him in the crossroads a couple times. I can go for a disaster kick. And then it was a little bit of back and forth, right? Just a little bit of Cody getting off some extra moves, knowing he could hurt Brock with the titanium cast, and, you know, then getting him in those finishing moves, and then Brock going back, hitting some F5s. I would note that Brock also never really used suplexes in this match. And this was a first in a long time. And all of his matches have been belly to back, belly to back, belly to back, F5, belly to back, F5, F5, belly. Like, it's 2 moves and then he's done, which is great. I mean, that's fine. But in this match, he never used a suplex. He used a lot of F5s. He used a lot of just basic offense. And then the main offense for him was Kimura lock. And Cody spent probably over 3 minutes in a Kimura lock until he passed out. And I don't really know of anybody ever passing out in this match or in that move. So for him to use a pass out thing, I get why they're doing it. I just think the execution of it was poor. And it kind of just goes back into the stuff where the fans and the crowd expect one thing, and WWE has made poor decision after poor decision after poor decision in Cody Rhodes' part. I think eventually what they're really trying to do here is to tell, like, hard times again with Cody, like Dusty had him in the 80s, but this just isn't working. Like, I understand that, like, they've made a mistake ever since Cody did not win the WWE Universal title at WrestleMania Night 2. Everything has been a miss for him. Everything. Right? It just hasn't been good. They could have left the feud with Brock, and then they brought it back. And then when they brought it back, they could have had him win again because he had the cast and in the feud, still pushing him towards that title run at WrestleMania. And now it looks, based off of what happened on Raw last night, it basically looks like they are aborting that, and he's not going to get a shot at Money in the Bank. It doesn't look like he's going to be able to fight Roman anytime soon. And then now the question becomes is who's going to win that WWE Universal title if it's not Cody? Like, where is Cody's path back to that? He's just going to be mired in this Brock Lesnar feud one more time. So, unless something happens where Cody still gets to go into Money in the Bank in the upcoming weeks through a match, or he gets put into the Money in the Bank match, and then fights Brock in the interim between Money in the Bank and SummerSlam, I don't really see what their plans are, and I think that despite WWE's efforts or thought process, everything that they're doing is just going wrong, and the stuff that he's doing isn't where the fans want him, and it's not beneficial to anybody. I don't see this being beneficial to Brock. I don't see it being beneficial to Cody, right? The fact that WWE's putting him through this, I don't know if it's a punishment for starting AEW, if it's a punishment for the other things that he's done to show like he was against the company and now is back. I don't know. But I do think they need to rethink this and put the titles on him sooner rather than later, because I think right now, like, a lot of the luster is coming off of his return and win at the Rumble because of this. So just things to think about. The final match of the night is probably the most intriguing match of the night, which was the tag team title match between Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. Leading up into this match, you've seen a lot in recent weeks of how Roman has shunned the Usos and how he has admonished them for losing at WrestleMania and how he's been on them. He's kept them off shows. He's kind of put them off. He won't give them title shots. He takes their title shots. And that arrogant-ish behavior that Roman has exhibited and sometimes is kept in reign, but the initial behavior of him where when he started this whole thing a couple years back and he started punishing Jey Uso and then he punished Jimmy Uso and he did a lot to start building the bloodline, those cracks have formed. And you can see that in recent weeks, Jimmy has been the one that's been like, bro, like, lay off, like, it's fine, we lost a match. And he has admonished them, he has called them out, he has scolded them, and then it has become physical with the abuse. It hasn't just been verbal abuse, it's been physical abuse. And you can see that Jimmy has started to hit his breaking point. And so you kind of knew at some point in time in this match the Usos were going to get involved. And that's exactly what happened. The match started out great. The competitors all really competed. Sami Zayn got like a nice introduction. The fans had been clamoring for him, but because of all the issues between Saudi Arabia and Syria, like, that didn't really work. But he was able to come out. The crowd erupted. They went crazy. When Sammy did his introductions, he did it in Arabic and was able to speak to the crowd in their language. And it was just amazing. And you could see, like, just the flow of emotion. You could see, like, the weight lifted that he got to compete. And they put on a great, great match. But this match was overshadowed by everything that happened at the end. The Usos came out in a time of need for Roman and Solo. As they came in, they became involved and immediately missed a super kick, hit Solo with a super kick. They go to the outside of the ring. They mess up another move. Roman is shocked. And then not only is he shocked, he's angry, he's frustrated. Then all of a sudden, they're in the ring. He's pushing Jey. He's asking him why he got involved. Jimmy's over on the other side, just sitting there watching it. He's pushing Jimmy, pie-facing him, just pushing him. And the next thing you know, he turns around, bam. Jimmy super kicks him in the face, knocks him to his knees. Jey immediately goes back into his role where he was at at Royal Rumble when Sammy did the same thing. He shook. He doesn't know what to do. You can see that the mental trauma and all the stuff that Roman has put him through for 2 years is kind of just weighing on him. He doesn't know what to do. He's almost like a kidnapped victim that doesn't know how to leave his captor. He is just stuck. And then he starts yelling at his brother, "Why did you do that? Why did you do that? You can't do that, blah, blah, blah." And then Jimmy pushes back. He finally pushes back and he says, "I'm doing what you should have done a long time ago." And then all of a sudden he lays in another super kick to Roman, knocks him outside of the ring. Jay is stunned. He doesn't know what to do. He's shook. He's back in that mode again, like Royal Rumble, and he's like almost catatonic. So he's there. Jimmy takes him and says, "We gotta go. I'm here for you. I'm never going to leave you." And then forces him to go out of the ring. As they're walking up, Solo gets back into the ring as the legal man. He takes the pin. Sammy and KO win the match, retain their titles, and Roman is left stunned. This was his first actual loss, technically, since 2019. And now he doesn't know what to do. And as Sammy said the night before on SmackDown, you know this is over, right? This twist of Jimmy turning on Roman has added so much to this bloodline story. I said in the last video that there is a path and there's a lot of places to go. And this video, or in this premium live event, has shown that. This has shown that there is so much more intrigue to the bloodline storyline. What's Jay going to do? Jimmy is obviously going to be opposed. He's out. But what's Jay going to do? Which way is he going to go? Is Roman going to blame Jay as well? Are they both going to be out? Well, then what happens to Solo? Is he going to be the warrior and the right-hand man now? Or is he going to follow his actual blood brothers? Right? What role does Paul Heyman play? Will Roman use Paul as a reason that they turned? Like, where is he going to go? Because in recent events has shown that when things go bad for the bloodline, Roman gets a little crazy. That's where his character has gone. He doesn't know how to handle it, and he overreacts. So we'll see where that goes. I'm very interested to see how WWE plays this storyline and where they drag it out. I still do think that this is going to come to a head at SummerSlam, because I think at SummerSlam, that's your time for a clean break. But who knows? This really made the pay-per-view pretty good. I do think that overall, when you're looking back at this pay-per-view, there were really good matches, and then there were some matches that were just kind of there. When we're looking at this compared to Backlash, I do think that when we look at the whole pay-per-view as a whole, there were a couple misses, right? The Rhea Ripley and Natalya match was a miss. The Gunther Positive Ali match was a miss. There was no real reason to have those on the card. But then again, you had a really good closing match and you had a really good opening match. And I think when you're building a card, those are things that you really want to have. Overall, I just kind of think that the whole premium live event as a whole was okay. You had two really good matches. You had two misses. You had a weird finish with Brock and Cody, and then you had an interesting title switch in the middle. And first title change in Saudi Arabia, which is of note in a bit of history, with Asuka and Bianca. So that's it for our recap. We'll see where this goes, and we'll kind of go from here. Stay tuned, and we'll see you at Money in the Bank. Bye.